they came from many nations, another day in the heart of Babylon.
Okay, so I'm Tim Smith here with Mark Passio from WhatOnEarthIsHappening.com. We're here at the end of Fed Rally, Fed Stock 2, April 23rd. And so we broke off from the group to come here to the old Federal Reserve building. The new one is at 6th and Arch. We're here at 9th and Chestnut, and it doesn't seem like people know about this building, but we came here because there's all types of symbolism on the building, and we're trying to get to the nature of what's going on here. Basically, let me ask Mark here. So, just to get to whoever doesn't know about the Federal Reserve, could you break down just the basics of who they are and what they do?
Sure. That's what this day is all about here in Philadelphia, with the freedom movement and truth movement. This is hot off the heels of the Free Your Mind conference, which we just had a couple weeks ago here in Philadelphia. And no time to rest, another activist-related event. The organizers for this one were Truth, Freedom, Prosperity, and they put together biannual End the Fed rallies here in Philadelphia. And they're transitioning away from calling them End the Fed and calling it Fed Stock. It's more of like a celebration and a show of camaraderie, and basically turning their back on the Federal Reserve, just basically saying we don't need you anymore, we don't want to cooperate with what you're doing, we disagree with all of your policies, and we're going to branch out from that, branch off and do simply what we want to do because that's within our rights to do so. So that's what the whole theme of the day is about. We've been out blanketing the city with End the Fed flyers and information just to give to the general population who is still very unaware of what this cartel of privately owned banks is all about. And that's essentially what the Fed is. The Fed is simply, for people who are new to this information, a cartel of privately owned banks. And they're the central banks that essentially control the distribution and the value of money in basically almost every country in the world, including right here in the United States. This is not a government institution. This is a cartel of privately owned banks. So individuals and not government agencies own and control this institution called the Federal Reserve System, and essentially they're responsible for regulating monetary policy is what they call it. But what it ultimately is it's a system of debt slavery, because when they print the money that they issue, debt is always attached to it. There's never more debt, there's always more debt, I should say, in circulation than there is actual currency that's printed in circulation. So that debt is impossible to repay, and it always ends up flowing back to them as liquid assets. So they're essentially taking over everything that hardworking people work to create and build with their own hands and their own sweat of their brow. And essentially this bank, through monetary policy, is essentially taking over the actual assets of really countries all over the world, not just the United States. And this is a practice that needs to be exposed, and it needs to be understood by people better, and it needs to be ended. And that's what the whole End the Fed movement is all about. And again, people in the city of Philadelphia, some of them are somewhat receptive, but they're still painfully unaware. And that's our work. That's what our work is to change that through good, solid information, and to bring them out of darkness and into the light.
But so you can imagine, if you control and print the money, how much power you have, because everybody believes that it's all about the money, that everything you do in your life is to make money, and people base their whole existences around this idea that it's all about the money. And you find out these people who are these conspiracies that are going on with the chemtrails that are above our heads and the fluoride in the water, and then people explain as, oh, well, they just want to make money. But imagine if you're the person printing and controlling that money system. For them, it's not about making money, because they can just print it all they want.
Exactly.
So for them, it's more about power and control and dominance.
Said it.
Full spectrum dominance to control all aspects of our lives. So we're here to expose the central bankers and what they're doing and the way they're actually able to control us in society. So when we start waking up to what's going on in the world, first we think it's the government. And, oh, the government's doing this and the government sucks, this and that. But then as you look into it deeper, you realize that the government isn't the ones controlling things. It's actually, then you look deeper and you see that they answer to the Federal Reserve and this money control system, because all the politicians are just lower levels. And so the politicians just work for the bankers. So that's where this whole movement here, the End the Fed movement, I feel like this is where they've ended in their rabbit hole, if you will,
yes.
where they just think it's the central bankers who
Right.
run things.
Right.
But as I've been learning through Mark's teachings on his What on Earth is Happening, and everybody check out his podcast to learn this information. But as I'm learning, it goes deeper than them just being central bankers. It turns out there's secret societies, people who practice occult information, who central bankers answer to. So you're the expert on this. I was wondering if you could speak a little bit deeper into this,
Sure.
this Federal Reserve System.
Well, this is still the most unexposed areas of what's really going on in our lives, because they're even among so-called awake movements of the population, like the freedom movement and, responsibility in government, transparency in government, etc. You have all these movements. You have the anti-war movement. The people who are still largely following and heading up these movements, I still have to say, are largely unaware, like Tim alluded to earlier, at how deep this rabbit hole goes. And to me, that's a psychological denial mechanism in their own minds, because they don't want to look even deeper than the political machinations and the political aspects of what's really going on. If you have the courage to do that, and if you have the tenacity to do that, not just the courage, but you have to have the willpower to dig deeper into that information until you can come to correct information about who indeed controls the central bankers. Because, again, like Tim was referring to earlier, if you have the power to issue and create money at your disposal, what would you ever want for it, really? What would you be lacking, really? Because people believe in money, I mean, that's what this movement really needs to go toward the disbelief in money. Stop believing in something that doesn't exist, like the authority of man, which also doesn't exist, but people believe in these things because they're under mind control. Another topic that's unpopular to bring up in the freedom movement in many circles. People don't want to accept that there's such a thing as mind control. Yet, why do people continue to uphold the system of slavery? If there's no such thing as mind control, what makes things like the Third Reich happen, which we're going to get into some symbolism about that in a moment. If there's no such thing as mind control, what makes people go off to fight wars that they have no idea what the real agenda that they're fighting for is all about? All of these things are fueled by mind control, and the ultimate form of mind control is money, because people unquestioningly believe that money exists and that it holds actual value. But going back to the question, who controls the central bankers of the world? Again, if you had unlimited resources, you would never want for anything. So it can't be just about personal greed, and indeed it is not. And anybody that still thinks that's all that this is about, like in political movements, that think this is all just about greed and nothing else, it's an extraordinarily naive attitude and approach to take to this. You need to go a lot deeper than that. You need to make a lot deeper of a study of it than that. And you need to understand what the occult is. And again, when you hear that word, mind control clicks in, because the very word, occult, is associated with mind control. A connotation is associated with that word. And the connotation that's associated with that word is the word evil. You just do this as a social experiment and ask about 99%, you ask 100 people, okay, what does the word occult mean? And I guarantee you over 90%, probably over 95% of those people are going to say that the word occult is associated with the word evil, okay? All the word occult is, and for the record, the word occult is not a noun, it's a verb. This is the first thing that needs to be understood about who controls these central bankers, okay? The occult is a verb. It means to hide, to conceal, or to keep secret, to veil from public scrutiny. That's what the word occult means. It means to hide. So when we talk about information that has been occulted, okay, something has been done to that said information. It has been hidden from public knowledge. It has been hidden from the view of the general population. And when you can occult knowledge from people about how anything works, whether it just be a system of money, whether it be information about how our own psyche and consciousness works, whether it be about technologies that may be available that we're unaware of, you have that person right where you want them. Right under your thumb, you have them under total control because you're able to wield that information that has been hidden from them without their knowledge, without their awareness of it, and you can wield it as a weapon against them. And ultimately, the people who control the central bankers of the world, and I'm going to say this as a definitive statement because I don't have a belief about this, I have knowledge about this. The people who control the central banks of the world are dark occultists. Period. That is a fact. That's not my belief. That's not an opinion. They are dark occultists. I worked with such individuals in the span of my lifetime when I was a younger person. Okay? And I'm telling you right now, if you're not looking into the occult, you're missing 90% of the picture or greater. At least.
Yeah, and I just wanted to back Mark up on that because I wasn't a part of any occult society to understand this, but these symbols that prove this is true are all over in stone. We have these riddles written in stone, and once you learn what these symbols mean, then you understand who's controlling things. So all you have to do is look at these symbols, look at what these symbols mean, and then it's obvious that what Mark's talking about is true. So as long as you just keep yourself open to it and study into it and look at it, you know, the reason why I'm doing this interview is because we had Mark put together this great Free Your Mind conference that was just a couple weeks ago that went really well. But a lot of people, even people within our own truth movements and our freedom movements, they go so deep, but once they hear the word that we're going to be talking about mind control at the conference, or the occult, or symbolism, they go, oh, they turn off and they say, oh, I'm not into that. I don't believe into that kind of stuff. So I'm just out here to try to get people to understand that there is a reason to understand the symbolism. There is a reason to understand mind control and what's going on, because that is what's really going on here. The Federal Reserve and the money system is really just a system of mind control to get us working for the occultists.
You want to break down some of the symbolism right here on the old Fed building?
Yeah, so that's why we're here to show that these symbols are right here in front of your face. It's hidden in plain sight, right in front of you. If you just look at it, you know, go out and you'll see it. So here we are at the Federal Reserve building. So here we are, right at the front door here, and I'll let Mark break this down.
All right, come on over and get a closer view here. So, one of the occultists' favorite symbols is the owl. You'll see this repeated over and over again. It's a theme. The reason the owl is one of the main symbols of the occult, and particularly the dark occult, okay, is because the owl is a predatory bird who has has night vision. So what the occult is ultimately about is about hiding knowledge. It's about taking knowledge out of the light of day and cloaking it under the dark of night, so that you can wield it as a weapon against unaware individuals. And by doing so, you can control those people's thoughts, emotions, and ultimately their behavior. Right? So, the owl is seen as a bird of prey. And that's what we're up against. We're up against predators. Predators who are psychopathic in nature. They don't have emotions. Not like we consider a normal range of human emotions. They have either completely numbed those out or they never had them to begin with. So when we think of what we might do, you can't compare those things to what they might do, because we have conscience, we have basic human emotions and a full range of them as well, whereas dark occultists do not have the full range of human emotions that we're used to dealing with on a daily basis. Okay, so you have to understand, basing your judgments, basing their behavior on what you would do is a completely erroneous approach to take based on what these individuals would do. You have to understand, they don't think like us, they don't feel like us, they don't act like us. They consider themselves a whole separate class of beings than the normal human being that's on this planet. Okay? So they use the symbol of the owl, and you could verify this. This is used in ancient occult orders. This goes back to ancient Egypt. It goes back to Sumeria and Babylon. The owl is a symbol of the modern-day Bohemian Club, which is a dark occult order that operates out of California, Northern California. Okay? So the predatory bird, the owl, can see its prey in darkness, but its prey cannot see it. So it has a distinct advantage. It has a differential advantage over its prey because it has superior night vision. That's why this symbol is used as one of the main symbols of dark occultism. Again, it's about gaining leverage or a power differential through hidden knowledge that someone else is unaware of to use it as a weapon for control. And I can't stress that enough. I could repeat that again and again because that's what the occult is, ladies and gentlemen. It is not what people originally associated with in their mind. That's a diversionary technique, and that is a technique of mind control. Okay, to associate occultism in general with vile, dark, evil rituals and Satanism and the traditional ideas of Satanism. I'm not telling you that those things don't exist because I know firsthand they most certainly do. However, the occult at its basic foundational principles is about the hiding of information. Okay, that's what it's about. That's how they can control people. And again, the main thing that they are hiding and concealing is the nature of who and what we really are. They're hiding the nature of consciousness and the human psyche. And as such, they gain leverage over the average person who has no idea about what drives human motivations, who has no idea about the inner workings of the subconscious mind. So these predators are preying off of all of those inadequacies and all of those shortcomings in the general population, because, sad to say, most people are very ill-educated, unread. The method for true learning has been removed from the modern public school system. As anybody who understands truly about what the occult is, they can tell you that you can understand that the true classical education methodologies have been done away with and replaced with outcome-based education, which is essentially propagandizing children from a young age to basically follow the leader. And that's what we have in the United States, essentially throughout the world. And that's how the occultists want to keep it. They want to keep that power differential, that knowledge differential. And again, this is one of the reasons we use the owl as one of the main symbols, particularly on financial buildings like this one. Now, aside from that, you'll see another occult symbol. I won't break down the entire facade here, but if you zoom in here on this tree that is growing from the woman's foot here, from behind it, you'll see the symbol of the pine cone. So the pine cone is another high-level occult piece of symbology. And the pine cone represents the awakened mind. It represents higher level awareness. It represents coming actually out of mind control. It represents true knowledge. It represents the balancing of the brain hemispheres, the opening of what's called the third eye, the human pineal gland. Again, that's why it's associated with the pine cone, the pineal gland or pineal gland. It looks like a tiny little pine cone in the center of the head, and it also looks like an eye. It has rods, cones, etc. It is like a vestigial eye of sorts because it is the spiritual eye, and it exists right in the center of the brain, just like the heart exists in the center of the self. This is the all-seeing eye, so to speak, or the third eye chakra, as it is known in certain mystical traditions. There's simply growing from the tree there on the right. Now, this is, again, a symbol of emergence from mind control, because those with knowledge are under mind control. Those with true knowledge, anyway, who have the true knowledge of how things work. The octagon is another symbol here that Al is contained in, on this shield that this woman is leaning back on. I broke down the octagon extensively at the Free Your Mind conference. It is another variant of what is known as the Tesseract or the Hypercube, and it is a symbol of mind control. So these symbols are all around us if we only understand how to decode them. But the decoding mechanisms have to be found in occult literature, in occult books, old books, most of the time. Indeed, they are. And most people aren't even reading modern books, which have questionable information in them at best, let alone older occult books that are out of circulation. But the internet is a phenomenal resource, and you can find this material online, and you can look into what the occult truly is, not speculations about it, not hearsay, but what it actually really is. And then through doing that, if you make an honest and scholarly study of it, which takes time, effort, and dedication, you can come to understand who the occultists that are putting these symbols on, set in stone, on buildings all around us, and you'll wake up to a whole new worldview, a whole new reality that's operating in plain sight all around us. We've never even seen it, but it's been there all along. Yeah. We'll do some more symbolism in a moment.
I just wanted to, well said, Mark. Yes, we are very lucky to have the internet nowadays because, you know, years ago, 10, 20, 30 years ago, hundreds of years ago, they didn't have this ability. You see, we have this ability to advance ourselves like this at the click of a button, and whatever we want is at our fingers. So we really need to utilize this, and you know, while we still have the ability to. But I wanted to get back to the pine cone that Mark was talking about, because the pine cone represents the pineal gland, which is also known as the third eye. Third eye, which is when they say open up your third eye, it's when your two eyes, your polar eyes, become as one, and you can now see. So is it a coincidence that the building the Federal Reserve, they run the money system, which is the one eye.
That's right.
So they have the pine cone symbolism right there to show you that this is all symbolic. This is occulted information, and people walk around with their money and everything's about the money, yet they don't even realize that it stands for that one eye.
The idea is that the dark occultists never give anybody the real thing, so to speak. They always hand somebody a proxy. So money is a proxy. It's backed by nothing. Okay, it's backed by only the faith of the people that use it, which is a form of mind control. Okay. But they're even giving you that whole concept of money. You know, precious metal isn't money either. There's only one form of money, and it's right here. That's the only form of money there is. Knowledge of self is the true one I. All forms of money, whether they be fiat currency, precious metal, tally sticks, or whatever else you want to use, is all a facade. It's all a proxy. It's something in place of the real thing. Okay? And that's what an occultist always wants to give to somebody who doesn't know any better. Because if they accept that in lieu of the real thing, in place of it, you have them right where you want them, you have them under your control. And And they're putting these symbols of mind control all over all kinds of institutions. Again, at the Free Your Mind conference, I broke down how this symbol is all over military and police regalia, uniforms, and emblems. It's everywhere. It's used as a form of mockery in those institutions. So people really need to do their homework. It's not something that you're going to immediately be aware of in one shot. It needs to be studied over time, which takes dedication, it takes effort. It's not easy. Okay? It's not immediate. It is a linear progression of understanding of ideas that you build, like you build a vocabulary up from when you're young, and then you grow that vocabulary. It comes from building blocks, letters, which then become words, and then sentences, and then larger syntax. Okay, so it's a stepwise progression that requires willpower to do. And if you're starting from a place of psychological denial, refusing to even entertain the possibility that this information exists and is real, and that this is who's controlling the entire game here, you're putting yourself at a distinct disadvantage. And the people who are ultimately controlling you are going to be able to do it no problem. It'll be a piece of cake for them if you stay in that level of psychological denial and ignorance.
Yeah, because if we stay at that lower level of understanding, they're going to hit us up with these symbols and affect our consciousness and go straight to our subconscious, so then we react in certain ways when we don't even realize it. You know, because we're so dumbed down to a level to where we don't understand what's going on, then they tell us with this money that they're giving us the one eye. You see, but they're not, you know, so then we're working with this money thinking that we got this one eye, when really it's far from that. It's not knowledge, it's not true understanding, but yet they are hitting our subconscious up, making us think that that's what it is. Yet we don't understand that. But once you understand what the symbolism means, you will then get it, and then you won't be controlled from it. So the great thing about this is, Mark, is once you wake somebody up, there's no putting them back to sleep.
That's right.
So that's
enlightenment works in one direction. You can't go back to ignorance once you become aware.
So
if you have knowledge, you need to spread it. That's what it's ultimately all about. That's what this whole day of outreach was about the Federal Reserve and what it does. And it's not about just knowing yourself. It's about then taking action based on what you know. And that's what true wisdom is. True wisdom is right action taken upon right knowledge. That's what wisdom is. And that's what it's all about, acting. Not just knowing, but acting.
Okay, so we're going to go give some people a little bit of wisdom over here. We're going to go break down some symbols on the courthouse. So we're going to walk over there and go break that down. Okay, so we're about 100 feet from the Federal Reserve, right down the street here on Chestnut. This is the United States Courthouse, and
Did you want to eat?
here you go, right in stone, right in front of your face.
Well, I'll just say we're at the corner of 9th and Chestnut now, and this is an old U.S. courthouse. It's no longer operating in that capacity. This is now a U.S. postal post office. So, but the symbolism we want to look at here is right here, out in the open, in a very large facade here. And you can see there's an authoritarian individual who looks like an ancient god or an ancient emperor of sorts. And he's holding with his right hand there a symbol known as the fasces. The fasces is a symbol of authority, centralized authority actually, of man's authority is what it represents. And this symbol is a bundle of rods, okay, held together. Usually there is an axe either on the outside or in the central column of these bundled staffs. What it means, what it symbolizes is centralization of power, which is what we're seeing globally in the globalist agenda. The rods on the outside represent smaller satellite states that are then held together by the one centralized authority or world government, so to speak. Okay? In ancient times, this was the Roman Empire, and that's where this symbol comes out of. It comes out of the ancient Roman Empire and the subsequent Roman Church that came out of the Roman Empire. But Here we see it right on a U.S. court building that was built, I believe, back in the late 1940s or early 1950s. So what I really want to point out, not just the symbol of the fascists, but what you see here a little bit more covertly behind this image, and I'll point to it directly. Right there, you see the double Sieg ruin. Those are Norse ruins called the Sieg ruin, and this was used by the Nazis. People will recognize it as the symbolism of the SS, the Schutzstaffel, or the German secret police. It was also, when combined or crossed over itself, that symbol was used as the swastika when you combine them. So this is hidden in plain sight right here on an old U.S. court building. Right there in the open, the SS symbolism, the double Sieg ruin. That's people wild. Walk by this all day long and have absolutely no idea what it means.
So we have fascism symbolism, we have Nazi symbolism.
Fascism and National Socialism right on the same facade, right there.
And we also have the eagle, which represents America. So I was wondering if you could explain what the eagle represented, sure. Because on top of the Federal Reserve Building, sure. We have an eagle right on top.
Eagle has been traditionally used as the symbol of royalty, authority, and it's particularly used in royal family symbolisms and coat of arms, and it is also used in the Roman Catholic Church as well. The Roman Church specifically in general, whether it be Catholicism or any other branch of the Roman Church. But you'll see this symbol of the eagle. You'll see it on top of scepters of royalty. You'll see it associated with the church, and you'll also see it associated with ancient symbolism of dynasties, ancient dynasties that go back directly to Babylon and to Egypt as well. This symbol generally represents, again, a symbol of the authority of man. And you'll see this depicted sometimes as a phoenix. The phoenix and the eagle are used interchangeably a lot. On the original Great Seal of the United States, the front side of it, the phoenix was originally used to represent that the United States was essentially something that had risen from the ashes of an old order or an old empire that came from the old world. But it was then changed to the symbol of the eagle. Okay? And the eagle is more astrotheology symbolism, which I cover extensively in my work and on my podcasts. It is a symbol of Scorpio, the scorpion. It is often used interchangeably with that. So it is a symbol of royalty, of religious authority. It is a symbol of the authority of man, man's law, in other words, okay? And it is, which is appropriate for this building, how it's being used. However, it is also a symbol of astrotheology and Scorpio as well, and the phoenix. The phoenix, it was used as in the occult.
And one other thing I noticed is that, as with the owl, the eagle is also a bird of prey.
That's right.
So they're predators. Yeah.
Predatory birds they love. Things that can swoop down and take their prey from a higher position. That's the key. They hold the higher position. And I'm unpopular for saying that. People don't like hearing that. They hold the higher position. They have the higher ground, and that's why they can continue to pick us off one at a time. That's why they are continuously successful at what they do. Okay? They are holding the higher ground from a place of knowledge. They have higher knowledge than most people around us have. They continue to exist in a place of pure ignorance, and not just ignorance, but denial, psychological denial as well. So, gotta break that state. Come out of the denial to understand this is real. Symbolism is a hidden language. Other people know it well, and they use it to their advantage, and it does affect you. You can believe it, not believe it, understand it, agree with it, all of that is irrelevant. Symbolism speaks to the human subconscious mind. If you are unaware of it, you are being controlled at the subconscious level. When you become aware of it, the information that that symbolism represents rises to the surface or to the conscious level, and it has a much harder time, people who are wielding it and using it, to use it as a mechanism of control once that occurs, once it comes up to the conscious level. That's why it is critical to study symbolism, understand it, and become symbol literate. Can't stress it enough. The occultists are using this all the time. It's all over your money, folks. All over it. All you need to do is open up your eyes, look at it, and then start researching what this symbolism actually means. And you'll be surprised at what you find if you take an open-minded approach and study it with a little bit of intensity and willpower and a thirst for the desire to know, a thirst for knowledge. You'll be surprised at what you can uncover and come to understand. And that's the first step out of mind control, that's the first step out of slavery, and that's the first step toward true freedom.
All right.
And other nations rise and fall, even though I'm not all seeing.